Let us begin. This is a really great impassioned subject for me. The subject of lab days. It's something we do at CauseLabs, and I'll introduce CauseLabs in a moment. And I believe it's what's caused our company to become the company we are. And so I'm going to share our story and be an open book about how we do what we do, and hopefully and maybe that will help spur more thinking and more innovation and more of that curious spirit for you all as well, and give you some tangible stories about how that could take shape. I'm TJ Cook. I'm the CEO here at CauseLabs, and I'm going to go ahead and, since you've seen my face, I'm going to screen share now. We are a company that believes everyone in the world deserves to enjoy the life-changing benefits of technology. It's a very simple, very profound statement, begs the inference that not everyone is enjoying the life-changing benefits of technology right now, and that's where there's a lot of alignment with the spirit and the programs of Internews and what you are trying to do to give a voice and information to those that might not naturally or potentially have it, and to spread that knowledge and to spread the creation of knowledge around the world. And that's what we try to do. But we're the kind of the band of geeks, if you will, that builds the things that enable that. Here's our kind of statement of the day. Culture change, culture formation doesn't happen in a day, but lab days do. What can you do in a day? What can be achieved in a day? And how can one day shape the rest? And that was that's kind of my leading question for us and for me. A little bit about CauseLabs before we kind of dig in. This is kind of the family picture, if you will, from a couple of years ago. Here you can see me wearing my super cool sunglasses, and I think I'm doing like a move from Street Fighter 2 or something there. And this is a great picture because it describes a team that is bound together by that common belief, not just common company name for whom we're working, but a common belief that puts us together as glue. And because of that, we have a really great rapport with one another and are able to achieve great things. This is our founder, Azeen, and he's the one I think that got in contact with Natalie and made this happen. So thanks to Azeen for that. And I don't know, maybe you'll have the opportunity to meet some of our other cool people as time goes on. But that's a little bit of a the quintessential family pick for you. What do we do? Who do we work with? We work with a lot of great organizations. We like to work. We call our work catalyzing for great causes, and we like to always challenge ourselves with posing the question: what is a great cause? Nonprofits. Some nonprofits are great causes. I believe some aren't. Some for-profits are not great causes, but many are. And it's not really about the legal designation to me. It's really about the mission and the vision and how a company is doing certain things in the world. You can kind of see that reflected in some of our work. But really, today isn't really about showing you all of our work. It's sharing about a journey that we were on. Some stories from the field of the past few years for us, and how we came to this one-day innovation experience that has led us to become the company we are. Lab days are every 2 months. We take time off from the work we're doing with our partners, and we innovate for a day. We form small teams. We say, choose something that you're passionate about, that you think could change the world, whether in a small way or a big way, and see how much of that you can build in a day. Explore it. Go crazy. There's no constraints, there's no edicts about what you must do. Just do something and do it great and have fun and be energized. Small teams, keep your team small, and at the end of the day we'll have show and tell. That's really the basics of a lab day. And what we've seen by starting that the past 3 years is that some really amazing things have come from it. Interestingly enough, lab days started as an internal program. It's something that we did. We just took some time out of our schedules, and since we started to see what they did to our culture, we kind of had an aha moment where we thought, you know what, lab days are actually something we could do, bringing in partners. Some of our partners we were already working with on, robust web and mobile platforms. We thought, this new idea they just had a call with us on, what could it be like to explore that in one of our lab days? So some of our most recent work, like Playing for Change Day, that platform actually emerged from a lab day, a one-day exploration of the concept. So it's been really exciting to see an internal program become really what we do in general with our partners, is catalyze these concepts and bring them, go from zero to visual as quickly as possible. Get off the paper, get out of our heads, and into something that brings us together to build it. So back to the slides here for a moment. So where has our work taken us? We've been to India with our work. Here's our founder, Azim. He went to India a few times in 2011. This was a crowdsourcing translation platform, the first of its kind, super innovative, and it engaged young and old. Some in the community were involved in translating text from Hindi to Angika for the first time ever. This was some of their first experience with a computer, and it engaged over 2,000 community members. It was very surprising, the uptake there. We learned a lot. We learned a lot by first building a rapid prototype, then going on site, putting that in people's hands, and seeing what worked and what didn't. Biggest thing we learned there is that they used it in groups. They didn't use the computer like we do, our own personal computer. They would always be 2 or 3 at least people looking around a single computer, and that actually had a dramatic impact on the way we built out things like logging in and things like voting on texts. We have been to Kenya. Here's a project with IDEO.org going and asking this question: how might we extend mobile banking to encourage mobile savings behavior? How can we harness the fact that everybody has mobile devices in a way that would lead them to spur each other on towards good financial decision making? And that was a really powerful project we did just late 2012 involving the community. Our lab days have taken us to Ghana, where we involved the community in what we affectionately called Crap Map, but the formal name of the project was Clean Kumasi, and this notion was, how might we involve the community in raising the alarm about the problem of open defecation, and what role could technology play in that? And it turns out technology played a really important role. We had people looking at signage and seeing a question posed on that signage: is open defecation happening in this area? If it is, call this number, and you'll get an immediate call back. And somebody in your own language, a native speaker, will ask you a few questions, and then we're going to pin that location on the map. And it turns out, of 22 locations that they kind of piloted, 3 emerged as hotspots. And it's very counter-traditional, where you'd have kind of staff going in and doing this work. To flip that on its head and have the community do that work of saying which locations need toilets, need sanitation the most, then what they found was that the community was much more engaged and bought into the intervention as opposed to just an outsider coming in and saying, here's what you need. So that was very important. Another project in Vietnam where we're helping them. Here was their, as of last March, their way of verifying latrine installations. So really important work. The sooner it can be done, the better, because as sanitation and the use of latrines increases, the instance of certain diseases and health outbreaks decreases. And they were using paper, digital cameras, Excel spreadsheets, and access databases to kind of get all the data from the field. And we went in and did a one-week workshop, which is essentially a series of lab days, and rapidly prototyped and did some role-playing scenarios that showed really quickly, really low resolution, but very importantly, here's what it could look like to do this on 7-inch Android tablets. And not only was the technology, proven, but the excitement that we saw from the people on the ground doing the verification, collecting that data back in the office. They were totally bought in, and that project continues to be tested in beta right now. So what I'll do now is kind of say, okay, those are some of the stuff we've been doing. What is the anatomy of a lab day? If we wanted to do a lab day, what would that look like, right? And lab day is our thing, but you probably heard about Facebook's hackathons or Google's 20% time. And in the world of tech, I think we bring this kind of ethos of hacking or rapid prototyping, but I'm kind of saying, and it's my belief that that ethos can apply to non-technological initiatives. Rapidly prototyping doesn't mean rapidly prototyping technology. It could be rapidly prototyping a new program, rapidly prototyping a new process. In fact, lots of our project managers here at CauseLabs use Lab Day to refactor our intranet, in 8 hours and show everybody at the end of the day, here's what we did, it's organized now, and everybody applauds that because that's important work. It's really the format that makes it special. So here's the anatomy of a lab day. We always require that there's a problem, there's people, and there's process. The problem has to be an acute one, or one that's small enough to be taken on in a day. So if in our drawing board sessions, which I'll describe in a second, we have somebody who says, you know what, I want to end world hunger, we might then tease that out and say, okay, that is awesome. Is there a specific geography, a specific population, a specific pilot area where you could explore what it's like to end hunger in a smaller batch and then see that expand past that? So big problems, small starts is the belief there. And I'll share some of the problem statements we formed in the past with our partners. But there has to be a problem. And that's actually important, because if we don't have a problem, what are we actually doing? Something interesting maybe, but not necessarily important. And the best innovation is the stuff that is interesting and important. So we do require that folks have a problem statement written by the time they get ready for lab day. People. We call the person who's going to drive a particular innovation the champion. We love that word. It's not the supervisor. It's not the lead. It's not the the instigator. It's the champion. This person is going to champion this idea during lab day, but also if something were to happen that say, hey, we have something here that really needs to be built out, we have a champion who's going to go through heck and high water to see that idea come to fruition. If there's no champion, then there's no lab day project, because there's got to be passion behind it at the early stages of innovation. And there needs to be a little bit of a process, not too much, or else you'll kill this general sense of excitement. But there has to be some constraints to help guide the people working on that problem, or else it'll be a free-for-all. And that's kind of one of these paradoxes, right? That innovation requires process. It's not a free-for-all, but neither is it a prescriptive 1, 2, 3 steps. But there's something in between there, a framework, if you will. And when we put these together and in the smallest possible format, that's when we get a lab day. We bring a problem to the table, we get some people on the problem, we have a little bit of a process for them to attack that problem. Problem, let's dive into that just a little bit more. We create what we call the problem statement. This could be in the human-centered design approach, a statement that starts with the 3 clever words, how might we? Or it could be a statement that is simply a 1-sentence explanation that there is a problem. Whatever the case is, it's this statement that is going to guide you from the beginning to the end, so that you don't get off course towards something interesting and away from what's important. So in this example, the problem statement going into that project in Vietnam was, how might we bring better efficiency and quality to the field level validation process to curb delays, data errors, and fraud? So we're getting really specific. It's not how might we build a cool digital product on Android. It's not how might we become technologically savvy. You can't, especially for us as a technology company, it's super important that we're actually articulating the human problem. You know what I mean? Because it can be very easy for us geeky people to, no offense to myself, but to really get geeking out about cool technology. But if it doesn't solve a problem, what are we really doing? So that's one example there. Here's another one from a workshop we actually did in Texas, and this was for a new emerging web platform to match people who have problems with those who might have the skills for the solution. So community members want to help and be helped, but mechanisms to tap in are inadequate, leading to attrition and unmet needs. So there's our problem statement. And you can see here in this example, there's a few other things you can do to add some meat to your problem statements. And this language is taken from the Lean Startup by Eric Ries, but it's this notion of a value hypothesis and also the growth hypothesis. Okay, if you have a problem, what will be the value of the solution? So talk to me about the flip side. This problem gets solved, what happens? And is that, in articulating your value statement or your value hypothesis, what will the outcome be? How can we quantify that? And then, of course, the growth hypothesis. If there's value there, how can we ensure, or how might we ensure that the solution grows from there, from that small pilot to something bigger? So you can do those sorts of things. And some of our workshops and lab days, the teams just get to a problem statement, and that's great. Some of them get to a problem statement, a value hypothesis, a growth hypothesis, and they have kind of a 3-point lecture about how they're going to get there, and that's great too. But the most important thing is the problem statement. I'll share one more. This is from the world of academia, where it's very easy to balloon a problem into something super huge, and we've seen the problem statement be a very simple but effective tool in gathering all the minds and focusing on one thing. So how might we form a network to support international, interdisciplinary, cross-professional collaboration and learning for interventions for children and youth in low and middle income countries? That was a mouthful, but believe me when I say that was a great improvement to consolidate, condense the voices into a single statement that we could all rally around. So that's the problem. You got to have a problem. People. This is important because the other thing that can happen in early stages of innovation is too many people or too few people or not the right people attacking the problem. I can share, we've been doing this for 3 years, and I can share that in the early phases when we had 4 or 5 people on a lab day project, about two of those people were either thumb twiddling or overlapping somebody else, or just creating inherent delays in the ability for that team to make decisions to get something done by the end of the day. It's not really about the quality of the people, it's about the number of the people. So we, and maybe this is acutely applicable to technology projects, but we employ on our lab day projects no more than 3 people. And honestly, some of our best lab day projects have been with 2 people, a designer and a developer, and they both wear strategic hats. But sometimes there is valuable insight and organization skills coming from a strategist to be the one saying, okay, what's next? Do we need that? Can we cut that? So we believe in a core team of 3 people, and when we do this with our partners, we want 3 people from their side to be core members of the team. These are folks that are going to come to the 2 drawing board sessions we do. They're going to be there for the entirety of the lab day, and they're going to be there to make decisions after we create what we create together. We also like to use what we call touch points, and this isn't a huge crowd either, but these touch points are extremely important even in these one-day sessions, because that team of 3, if it's an internal project of ours, or 6 if it's a project we're doing with a partner, we could get excited. We can get really in-depth on certain things. And if we don't check in with reality, check in with somebody outside the building, as it were, and test assumptions, even every hour, every 2 hours, call them up via Skype, ping them with the text message, send them a visual and say, what are you thinking about this? Then there's a risk there of kind of designing in a vacuum, and you don't want that. Ideally, you have touch points who could be there on site with you, but sometimes with what we're doing right now with Google Hangouts on Air, there is value in getting face-to-face for a few minutes, pitching it, getting some rapid feedback, and then saying, oh, that's really, really valuable, let's go back to the drawing board. And I can't share how many times a touch point session right in the middle of one of our lab days has led to a much improved and different direction for one of our projects. The process we use here at CauseLabs is 3 steps. So we do 2 drawing board sessions before the lab day begins. And this is important. So if you've ever been a part of a hackathon, they're in the DC area, or any of these types of events, sometimes nobody meets, nobody talks until the hackathon begins. And we've noticed that there's a lot of logistics and a lot of grounding time lost at the beginning of the day of innovation to sorting out who's who and who's doing what and what's the problem. So we do 2 drawing board sessions. Typically, they just happen over Skype. We have people meet over Skype, and the first session is all about that problem statement. And honestly, it's just getting everybody on the same page. Oh, here's your name, that's your name, I do this, I'm going to do this. Building a little bit of morale and camaraderie, and getting everybody bought in and voiced in around the problem statement, so that everybody can take a deep breath at the end of that call, say, all right, there's a problem statement. What also happens is, especially when we're doing this with partners, somebody will inevitably say from our client's end, oh, you know what, I haven't shared this document with you guys that explains a 3 to 5 year vision for this, or, oh, you know what, we just got a report in from an outside third party validating this program that we're about to build a platform for, or whatnot. So content and research opportunities come out of that first drawing board as well. The second drawing board that we do, again, usually over Skype, starts to narrow. Okay, we have the problem statement. We're onboarded to some of the content, some of the research. Perhaps we've called a few people who've been working on the ground experiencing this problem. Now we can come in and start saying, all right, so what could we do on lab day? And this is an important session because it gets the wheels turning. It's not that we have to decide here's exactly what we're going to do and we're not going to change it. but it gets everybody's wheels spinning about what we could do on lab day. And so my developer often will start doing a little bit of coding. The designer will start doing a little bit of sketching, and everybody will start to do a little bit of thinking. And that's really important because the time between the second drawing board and lab day, there's already a lot of work being done mentally that humans need time for. We need to onboard. We need to give ourselves a moment to breathe and consider the problem. And that makes everybody's ideas and what we build on lab day all the better. If you don't have drawing board sessions, what we found is 2 to 3 hours of lab day could be spent on the equivalent. So that's a little bit of drawing board sessions. Lab day here at CauseLabs, where everybody's distributed, everybody checks in at 8 a.m., says hello on Skype, and then we're off to the races. Teams are in their own little group chats, or some teams are on site in our hub in Denver, and they go at it. They attack the problems. There's really no hour-by-hour agenda other than, hey, at 4 p.m. Mountain Time, show and tell, and everybody's going to have about 5 to 8 minutes to pitch their idea. So be ready. And here's this picture of Megan, one of our producers, peeking into one of our projects solo for basically mountaineering or international development applications when you're going out to do field work or hiking or camping, and you want to leave a breadcrumb via your device. So that's just an example. So when we do our lab days, there's this show and tell. It's a wonderful hour. Here's what we did. We have about 2 or 3 minutes of feedback where people can say, oh, you know, I love that idea, and give some encouragement. We always start with the pluses whenever possible, and then ask some leading questions like, how could you validate that? How could you actually test that with somebody? Or, you know what, would that work on iOS? Or, you know, some technical questions. So we do, it's not just a pitch, it's a conversation starter, and gives those teams some really great rapid feedback. When we do it with partners, we give ourselves a week. We can get into that later, but a week to polish the concepts and then do a final demo. But that's a derivation of what we do internally. So lab day, getting back to this initial question is, what can you do in a day? This is where I'll be a little vulnerable, and I'll say, before we did lab days, being a client services company, there's an inevitable problem that happens with feeling burnt out on your project, feeling that you're maybe in a rut, and no matter how cool your coworkers are, man, I just need a break. And that's why we take vacations, of course, but from a pretty important and high level, we're starting to see morale and culture kind of dip, I would say. We brought in lab days, and we initially called them jam sessions. There's a whole history I could get into. It's very exciting. And what we saw immediately was some of these fringe benefits, is what I'd say. Some of these things that I look back now and say that it really became the heart of rejuvenation of culture for us. Because when you get somebody who's working on this project with somebody who's working on that project, they haven't worked together in 3 months, but they team up for this one day, you increase the bonds between people at the company in ways you couldn't do by doing it through some standard mechanism of you should be on this project for 3 weeks. And it's very easy to do something in a day because it's just a day, right? Cross-training and skill development. We have developers who will play with completely new technologies on lab day because it's just a day. It's a day. It's not meant to put your job on the line at any means. In fact, it's just a fun day where you can do something meaningfully. And so, hey, go explore that new technology. See what you could build with that new technology in a day. It's a huge culture and morale boost. A lot of energy. I can't really describe the feeling I have after show and tell on lab days. It's a feeling of togetherness. It's a feeling of cohesion, almost like rebalancing. And it's a huge opportunity for knowledge sharing and moments of serendipity. I also can't describe how many times one team's project has led to another project because another team who had worked on something 3 lab days ago sees this as an opportunity to kind of mash up the ideas and take it in a new direction. So it's idea sharing in ways that you can't do, again, via standard intranet or asynchronous methods or team meetings. It has to be cross-collaborative, and lab days are a way to do that. So, and when I say the term rainforest fertilizer, I'm borrowing from a recent book I read called Secrets of the Rainforest, the Rainforest, How to Build the Next Silicon Valley. It's by a few guys from basically a rainforest architect firm, and rainforest in the metaphorical sense, not the Amazonian sense. But at CauseLabs, we are a team of innovators. We happen to be using our design and development chops to do that, so our innovations focus on technology. But I believe there's innovators everywhere, and there's opportunities to create these rainforests, these ecosystems where people can come together, create ideas, create solutions that work, that didn't exist before. And lab days are a great fertilizer for that kind of a culture. I don't have any slides other than this, but lab days are a start. They're a kickstart to projects, but they're also a kickstart to that culture. And we have had many lab days that have become breakthroughs that are affecting thousands of lives, hundreds of thousands of lives, millions of lives. And I can point to a handful that really started as a single-day collaboration between just a couple people. And it's really amazing to see.